Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we are unpacking an absolutely mind-blowing story that shatters pretty much every expectation society has about timing, success, and what is truly possible. We're looking at the deeply inspiring journey of Dr. Damilola Odukoya. Her story? Well, it's basically a masterclass in courage, family sacrifice, and the sheer power of beginning again when literally everyone else expects you to just settle.
I want you to really think about this question for a second. When does a dream actually expire? We live in a world that is completely obsessed with these artificial timelines. We're constantly told when we should graduate, when we should settle down, when our careers need to be perfectly figured out. Society is incredibly quick to use the phrase, too late. But if we strip away all those outside expectations, what actually happens to the ambitions we leave behind? Do they die? Or do they just kind of lie dormant?
37. That is the age Damilola boldly walked in to write her Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board examination, you probably know it as JAMB, all so she could pursue a degree in medicine. At a stage in life when most people would have long concluded that studying something as intensely demanding as medicine was completely off the table, she decided to start again.
Section 1. A Dream Refusing to Die. Breaking the Timeline.
Because the truth is, some dreams just don't expire. They simply wait for the courage of the dreamer to return to them. So the crucial point is that Damilola wasn't starting from a blank slate with endless free time, right? Honestly, far from it. She was already balancing the massive, real-world weight of being a wife, raising 3 kids as a mother, and working as a full-time laboratory technician. Beneath all of those heavy daily responsibilities, that long-held dream of becoming a doctor stayed stubbornly alive.
And her whole story is anchored by this one powerful perspective. I may not have started when others started, but I refuse to let delay become denial. Just wow, what a mindset. She recognized the delay, for sure, but she completely refused to surrender her God-given ambition to the sheer pressure of time. The delay didn't bury the dream, it actually deepened her resolve.
All right, moving into Section 2, returning to the starting line, courage over shame.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because, look, making the choice in your mind is one thing, but actually walking back up to those examination gates publicly, that requires a whole different level of bravery. Just look at the gap between her attempts here. Year 1 was her first try at JAMB. Then came nearly 2 decades, years 2 through 19, spent waiting, working as a lab tech, raising a family, and hoping. And finally, year 20, a bold return at age 37. Nearly 2 decades passed. But she didn't view those 20 years as a permanent wall blocking her destiny. She used them as an eventual bridge to get where she needed to go. And when she stepped back up to that examination gate, she was fundamentally different from her peers. Think about the contrast. On one side, you have your traditional JAMB candidate, a teenager fresh out of secondary school. On the other side, you have Damilola, a fully grown adult carrying family duties, professional experience, and this deep emotional maturity that only comes from years of waiting. It took an incredible amount of psychological strength to sit in that hall, completely tuning out the potential for shame.
Here's another beautiful insight from her journey. Starting again did not mean I had failed before. It meant I still believed there was more ahead. She totally reframed the entire concept of a second chance. Returning to the starting line wasn't some public admission of failure. Actually, it was a loud public declaration of belief. It was literal proof that age should never be allowed to imprison ambition.
Section 3. The Discipline of Medicine. Navigating Unilag. Because getting accepted is a monumental triumph, obviously, but doing the actual work is where the true test begins. Her admission to study medicine at the University of Lagos wasn't just your standard university success story. Medicine is widely known as one of the most rigorous courses in Nigeria. It demands long hours, late nights, intense intellectual stamina, strict clinical discipline, and you need remarkably high emotional resilience just to survive the program, let alone thrive in it.
And remember, Damilola is facing all of those intense academic and clinical demands while simultaneously nurturing a home and raising her 3 kids. This required managing a monumental dual life. She wasn't just studying to pass incredibly difficult medical exams. She was actively running a household. The discipline of medicine demanded deep focus, but, her family also needed her presence. She had to seamlessly weave both of these wildly demanding worlds together. Which brings us to Section 4, Seizing Your Second Chance, the Anatomy of Success.
And this brilliantly illustrates what it actually takes to pull this off in our own lives. What can we take away from Dr. Odukoya's incredible achievement? Well, desire alone is never enough to secure a second chance. You need a playbook. Second chances require Step 1, structure. Step 2, planning. And Step 3, discipline. Damilola had the dream, for sure, but it was her unmatched discipline, structure, and meticulous planning that actually allowed her to balance medical school with motherhood and ultimately succeed.
It also requires a profound mental shift, which is captured perfectly in this definition right here. The difference between a bridge and a wall. Damilola could have easily looked at that 20-year gap since her first exam attempt and said, well, this is a wall. It's permanent. I can't get past it. Instead, she treated that exact same gap as a bridge. Her story proves to every late starter that the most important step isn't the one you missed yesterday. It's the one you are willing to take today.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the simple, hard-hitting truth it reveals. Doors only close because of age when we stop knocking. So many people actively bury their own ambitions because they mistakenly think a door has been locked from the inside by society's timeline. Dr. Odukoya's life is standing proof that the door is still right there. You just have to have the guts to walk back up to it and knock.
Which leaves us with this final question. What door are you going to start knocking on today? We all have delayed dreams, right? We all have things we secretly think it's too late to pursue. But hey, if a mother of 3 working full-time can walk back in to take her exams at 37 and absolutely conquer medical school at Unilag, what is really holding you back? Don't let delay become denial. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and honestly, I hope this gives you the courage to take that next big step.
If this message opened your mind, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Master Sense by Faraday, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs wisdom, clarity, and inspiration today. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful lesson. Remember, knowledge becomes power only when you act on it. See you in the next video.
Hey everyone, and welcome to an explainer that honestly just gets right to the absolute heart of human perseverance. Today, we're diving into the incredibly inspiring journey of Dr. Damilola Odukoya. We're going to unpack a story about totally defying society's relentless timelines and what it really takes to resurrect a buried dream. I mean, we're looking at some serious resilience here. She transitioned from working full-time as a laboratory technician to graduating as a medical doctor from the University of Lagos College of Medicine, all while balancing the immense, crazy demands of motherhood and marriage. If you've ever felt like, the clock is ticking way too fast, or maybe that your window of opportunity is just closed, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention to this one. So let's just dive right in with a question that, let's be real, probably sits pretty heavily in the minds of a lot of us at some point. Is it ever too late to pursue a forgotten calling? We all have those internal doubts, right? That nagging little voice that says, hey, you missed your chance, or you're just too old now, or your life is way too complicated. It's so incredibly easy to let our current circumstances totally dictate our future possibilities. But what we're going to explore today, it completely shatters that limitation. Dr. Odukoya's journey proves that, sure, the calendar might count the years, but courage? Courage can completely rewrite your seasons. Let's look at exactly where her story began. Before she ever set foot in medical school as a student,
Damilola was actually working full-time as a laboratory technician in a hospital. Now, obviously, this background brought her close to the medical environment. She was, you could say, adjacent to the dream. But as you can imagine, actually becoming a doctor, that required a totally different level of academic commitment. It wasn't just some small step up, it was a massive, courageous leap right into the unknown. In fact, to give this grueling path her full attention, she eventually had to take a study leave from work. And honestly, this highlights a reality we often tend to ignore. Sometimes you have to intentionally step away from the absolute security of the life you know, just to build the life you're actually called to.
But the academic leap was only one part of the whole shebang. 5 years. That is exactly how long she and her husband waited after getting married before welcoming their first child. So before her medical school journey even really took off, Damilola faced some incredibly deep personal challenges. By the time she actively began her pursuit of medicine, her family had grown, and get this, she was raising 3 children, including an infant. Just think for a second about the sheer emotional weight and the immense life experience she carried into that classroom way before she ever opened a single textbook.
Consider the stark contrast of her reality. On one side, you have your typical medical student, right? They're worried, and rightfully so, by the way, about intense lectures, tests, exhausting ward rounds, and those massive career-defining exams. Medical school is famously unforgiving. But on the other side, you have Damilola. She had all of those exact same academic pressures, plus planning meals, executing school runs, and trying to memorize incredibly complex human anatomy while simultaneously tending to the very urgent, very loud needs of a literal infant. Motherhood absolutely did not silence her dream, but it definitely meant she had to carry a much, much heavier load than most of the people sitting right next to her in the lecture hall.
There's this reflection from her that just captures this perfectly. She said, "There were days when the books were heavy, the body was tired, and the children still needed me, but purpose kept calling." Man, that just hits you, doesn't it? This is what makes her journey so deeply human and relatable. We so often think of motivation as this loud, roaring fire. But sometimes motivation is incredibly quiet. Sometimes it looks like just forcing your eyes open to study in the dark hours of the night after the kids have finally gone to sleep. Sometimes it looks like dragging yourself to a lecture when sheer exhaustion is basically sitting right beside you. She had to choose this fierce, relentless discipline on the days when encouragement was low and the finish line felt, well, miles and miles away. But here is a really crucial truth we've got to highlight. No great dream grows well in isolation. Behind these monumental achievements are usually these quiet, steady systems of sacrifice. And for Damilola, a massive part of that system was her husband, Damilola Odukoya. His support highlights a really vital truth for all of us: encouragement, understanding, sacrifice, and true partnership. Those are the things that strengthen a person through seasons that would otherwise feel completely, totally impossible. When you're pursuing a demanding dream, the support systems around you can quite literally be the difference between surrendering and surviving.
Now, as she navigated this whole journey, there was an obvious social dynamic at play. She was significantly older than a lot of her classmates. Now, in a high-pressure environment like med school, being the oldest could so easily have become a source of profound embarrassment, right? Or just pure discouragement. She could have tried to shrink back or hide it. But instead, she carried her difference with incredible grace. It just became part of her unique identity. In fact, some of her younger colleagues affectionately called her Mommy. It was this wonderful title that captured both their age difference and the immense, profound respect she commanded just by consistently showing up and doing the hard work day in and day out. And this level of grace came from a very specific mindset. As she put it, the fact that I started late did not mean I was late in life. It meant my journey had its own season. That is so powerful. She brilliantly avoided the toxic trap of comparison. Actually, let's be real. Comparison is one of the absolute greatest enemies of progress. If she had constantly looked left and right, focusing only on the youth of her classmates, she might have just abandoned her dream before it ever had a chance to mature.
But instead, she kept her eyes locked on her own unique destination, totally embracing the fact that every single lecture she attended and every sacrifice she made was building her specific, beautiful testimony.
And all of that discipline, all of that laser focus, all of those incredibly late nights finally culminated in a massive milestone, 2022. In 2022, after years of absolute relentless hard work, Dr. Damilola Odukoya proudly graduated from the University of Lagos College of Medicine. She did it. The laboratory technician, the wife, the mother of 3 who actually dared to return to the classroom, she successfully crossed that finish line to become a medical doctor.
Her graduation was, without a doubt, a massive personal victory. But it also became this deeply symbolic message of resilience, reminding all of us that the human spirit really can begin again. Her achievement speaks directly to women who maybe had to pause their own dreams to raise a family. It speaks to workers who wake up every single day feeling totally trapped in careers that just no longer reflect their true calling. It is a powerful, living message for literally any adult who fears that their window of opportunity has permanently closed.
So, what does this all mean for us? What are the core takeaways we can pull from our journey? Well, first, it is truly never too late to begin again. Age might influence your journey, sure, but it absolutely doesn't cancel your destination. Second, responsibility, like family and work, shouldn't mean surrendering your personal growth. They can totally coexist with the right planning. Third, as we saw with her amazing husband, support systems are just absolutely vital. Fourth, society's timeline is not universal. What actually matters is how faithfully you continue, not how early you start. And finally, your personal struggles actually give your achievement so much deeper emotional weight. Delayed success isn't failed success, right? Often, the longer road produces a much stronger, much more disciplined person.
If you're going through this explainer right now and thinking to yourself, man, I really wish I'd started earlier, I need you to remember this. Regret is not a roadmap. It can only show you what you value. It cannot move you forward unless you actively, intentionally convert it into action. There is someone out there right now who wants to return to school or change careers, learn a new skill, maybe pursue a totally forgotten calling. Damilola's journey is practically shouting at you to begin. Just begin with what you have. Begin right from where you are right now, even if your hands are completely full and your confidence is feeling a little small.
Which brings us to our final defining thought for today. You might not control how long your road will be. And hey, you might not be the youngest person in the room. You definitely may not have a perfect, uninterrupted schedule. But you can still be the most determined. Your age is not your enemy. Surrender us. So the only question left really is, will you take the first step? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this story has sparked something powerful within you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and whatever you do, don't surrender your dream.
If this message opened your mind, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to MasterSense by Faraday, hit the like button, and share this video with someone who needs wisdom, clarity, and inspiration today. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful lesson. Remember, knowledge becomes power only when you act on it. See you in the next video.